It is said, in the oldest borderlands, that the village of Valrock never waited for nightfall. For night, there was not an hour but a verdict. And when the sun still bled weakly over the hills, the gates were already sealed with wood and iron, not out of caution, but out of memory. Because Valrock lived by rules older than its stone walls. Rules whispered from parent to child, like prayers that could not be spoken aloud. The legend tells that if the howling rose first, the wolves were near and mercy was still possible. But if silence came before any cry, then the vampires had already crossed the forest edge and were walking among the shadows unseen. On the night of the black moon, when the sky darkened around a lightless disk hanging low above the trees, the elders turned their faces away. The priests bound their bells in cloth, and no names of gods were spoken, for all remembered what had happened the last time the moon had risen wrong. Blood found without bodies, doors opened from within, footprints that ended as if their owners had been taken upward into the dark. The tale says one guard was left outside the walls, chosen not by courage but by chance, standing with a spear he did not trust, watching a forest that did not move, did not breathe, but watched him in return. Then the wind died, the insects fell silent, and no howling came, only a silence so complete it was said to press against the walls themselves. And in Valrock's legend, silence was never empty, for it meant the hunt had already begun. The legend continues that when dawn finally crept toward Valrock, it carried no warmth with it, and the gates were opened only after long hesitation, for the silence of the night still clung to the stones like a curse, unwilling to loosen its grip. There, nailed upright against the outer gate, the villagers found the guard who had been left behind, his body arranged with a deliberate cruelty that suggested intention rather than hunger. His blood neither spilled upon the earth nor taken by beast or blade, but drawn out with a careful precision that spoke of something ancient and patient. Those who approached first spoke of the smell before they spoke of the sight. A faint metallic sweetness mixed with wet fur and cold ash. A scent no fire could explain and no wind could carry away. The wounds upon his flesh bore the memory of both fang and claw. Yet beneath them, carved into the skin of his chest, was a symbol none dared touch. A circle broken by 3 deep slashes, an old mark known only from forbidden margins of monastery texts, said to signify a truce violated and a hunt made lawful again. His eyes remained open, fixed wide toward the forest, and those who met his gaze later swore he had not died in terror, but in recognition, as if he had understood in his final breath what now walked freely beneath the black moon. No tracks led away from the body, no broken ground marked a struggle, and the soil beneath his feet was untouched, as though the night itself had held him upright until the message was fully delivered. And in the legend of Valrock, it was at that moment the village knew the killing was not an end, nor a warning meant to frighten, but a declaration that the ancient balance between the wolves of the forest and the lords of the night had been shattered, and that Valrock had been chosen to remember it. The legend says that the elders of Valrock did not call for help in the usual way. No horns sounded, no riders crossed the hills. Instead, they descended into the hidden chamber beneath the chapel, a place older than the village itself, where stones still bore the memory of prayers whispered by hands long turned to dust. By flickering candlelight, they traced the broken circle, the same mark carved into the guard's chest, with salt, ash, and a single drop of their own blood, the metallic scent rising and mingling with a faint, damp smell of wet fur that made the stomach churn. And then he came. They would later call him Elric, though no one remembered whether that had been his true name before the night claimed him. He stood taller than any man, but moved with unnatural silence, and the symbol burned faintly into his cloak as if stitched by fire itself. The stone beneath his feet seemed darker where he walked, carrying the memory of long spilled blood, and when he exhaled, the air tasted of iron and rot, warning that the scent of Valrock was wrong. Not wolves, not vampires, but something older, a breach of a pact long sealed. Elric did not promise protection, did not ask for consent. He only acknowledged the truth of the night. And when he left, the candles bent as if bowing, shadows lengthened unnaturally, and the elders knew. What they had summoned was not a hunter to end the coming war. It was a witness, chosen to survive it. The legend tells that when the black moon climbed above the forest, it did not cast silver light, but a shadow so thick it seemed to swallow the treetops and push against the village walls. Wolves howled in the distance, their cries broken and twisted, yet no one dared move, because in that same darkness, the vampires had already stepped among the trees, silent, their eyes glowing faint red like embers in wet ash. The air itself carried a strange scent, the sharp tang of blood mixed with cold stone, and beneath it, a faint metallic sweetness that made the stomach turn and the tongue taste iron before the first drop had fallen. Deep within the clearing, the ground bore the same broken circle that had marked the guard and been traced by the elders in the chapel, now scorched into the earth as though pressed there by claws unseen. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, and the moss on the trees formed sigils that seemed to shift if one stared too long, twisting into shapes no living mind could name, whispering of hunger and a covenant broken centuries ago. The legend says that on that night, the forest itself breathed with two hearts, one of wolf, one of vampire, and both knew the hunt had begun. Those who survived the night would swear the air tasted of iron and smoke, the earth bore invisible teeth, and the black moon never truly left their eyes, for its mark, the broken circle, the scent, the twisting sigils, was burned into their memory forever. The legend says that when the first pale light of dawn crept over Valrock, the village stood quiet, but it was not the same village that had sealed its gates the night before. The streets were empty, the houses intact, yet the air carried the lingering scent of iron, wet fur, and the faint sweetness of old blood, a perfume that clung to stone and timber alike. Near the outer gate, the guard who had vanished during the black moon's rise was nowhere to be found, replaced only by a broken spear, its shaft splintered and coated with two distinct shades of crimson, one fresh, one older, coagulated and dark. And on the cobblestones beneath, the broken circle reappeared, etched subtly as if by invisible claws, twisting and shifting when anyone dared look directly at it. A mark of the ancient war that had been woken once more. Survivors later whispered that the black moon had left its sign upon every soul who remained, a faint metallic taste in the mouth, a shadow at the edge of vision, a sigil burned behind the eyelids that no water could wash away. The elders knew then that nothing in Valrock had truly ended. The wolves, the vampires, and the hunters had not gone, and the pact that once held them in uneasy balance had been shattered. And somewhere, in the farthest shadow of the village, a presence waited, watching, remembering, and marking the next soul who would stumble unwittingly into the hunt. The legend concludes simply, the black moon's night is never over, and those who believe it has passed are already too late.